Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Astral Tourist, the podcast where I fling myself across the multiverse, occasionally get grounded by cosmic bureaucracy, and then report back with snacks. Well, my spirit guides have been busy. Oh my gosh. So if you've been following the Jupiter saga, the steampunk submarine, the Jovian Lux, the entire glamorous dive into a gas giant plan, you know I've been preparing for a big astral projection. The intention was set, the ident was built. I even made a song. The playlist is ready. The vibes were immaculate. I did everything I know to do, and apparently the universe has other plans. So occasionally setbacks do happen. I'm considering this to be a small one, but I wanted to make sure and report it. So instead of floating above the swirling storms of Jupiter, I wound up in a dream version of an old house I used to live in. And from there, things only got stranger, sillier, and slightly bureaucratic in that classic astral plane kind of way. So yes, there is a spirit guide involved, which I'm really excited about. I love when my spirit guides actually show up and give me information. And I don't have to go asking for them, opening doors, trying to go through portals, just trying to get any little clue I can. I mean, when they come to me, it's so much better, right? And yes, there are chives, impossible chives. So let's get into it. So there I am, dreaming about one of my old houses I used to live in, minding my own unconscious business, when I notice my modern day reading glasses are sitting there in the kitchen sink, also looking a little bit more beat up than they actually are. Wow, I really used them up, right? Maybe they got stuck in the garbage disposal. I don't know. And that was my first clue. Because, look, I've put a lot of things in kitchen sinks before. Cups, spoons, existential dread, regular glasses, but never my reading glasses. So it was like my brain went glasses. Glasses in a sink. Different kinds of glasses are in the sink. I was just becoming lucid. And I'm like, a pun? A dream pun? And that's how I knew I was dreaming. And also things were shifting a little bit, and they don't really do that in the astral. Things are pretty stable in the astral. So I just decided to drift with it because I knew I was tired, and a low effort dream about a kitchen sink and, my reading glasses sounded great to me. I figured I would just, snooze away. And then someone knocked on the door. So it was a man. He had short brown hair, freckles, and he was wearing a brown suit, possibly tweed. I couldn't quite tell. And he had some light around him that looked just like basic white light. Immediately I could tell there was all this sadness coming off of him. He was standing there like someone who'd just been told his favorite constellation was discontinued or, blinked out or something. Not just Pluto not being a planet anymore. Nope. Like a whole universe or something gone. That was the vibe. He was so somber and very much like, I'm here from the astral office of important announcements. He did not actually say that. And this is what he actually said. He actually said that he had pretty bad news about my special project. Oh, I asked. He sighed and shared really pensively. Oh, yes, this was also a really pensive fellow. The energy differential is 2/10 off. So the special Jupiter project won't work right now. So now to me, 2/10 sounded manageable, like a microwave timing issue or something, a little glitch in the matrix or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20, but not, nothing huge. But he looked absolutely devastated. So I invited him in and told him I was dreaming about making Chinese chicken salad. And he asked why I wasn't more upset about it all. And I said, it's only 2/10. And he responded, that's actually a really big amount, Like he was disappointed that I didn't know my math or something. So I had to explain to him telepathically that I did understand that things are much larger, especially on quantum levels and especially for outer space travel. So energy-wise in the astral, that is a big amount of energy. And I explained, I've been tired. I know I have. Astral travel takes, huge, big energy. I kept telling him, big energy, I do understand. And, I just had the whole Lizardtopia adventure in space, which I know, took a lot, an enormous amount of energy. So a delay for more space travel does make sense. And also, physical life needs tending too. And I've been taking on some more work projects and things. So, I just explained it all to him that, I got that it's big energy, but it's okay. And so I asked him his name, and he told me it was Colin. And I don't always get a name from my guides. So another thing to be excited by. Like now I know one is named Colin. And, he was still really solemn and still radiating, I really hate being the messenger kind of vibes with the big sad face and the pensive looks and like, are you sure you're not upset kind of looks at me. And so I told him he needed to lighten up and come enjoy all the fresh veggies I was slicing in my dream. So he seemed really grateful, but still uncertain, So he chose to sit in the living room, which was like down a short hallway. And all I could see was like faint brown colors back there. And, he was being a very confused guest because he thought I would be super upset at this news. Well, I simply went, back to the kitchen and kept preparing salad. So I decided to take a peek at him with my 360 vision through the kitchen wall, because that's another tip and trick I've covered before. If you put 360 vision on when you're not flying, I've found I can often see through walls doing that, but it can really, put you off balance. So, use caution when doing that and maybe just very briefly have it on and then flick it right back off. And so what I saw was him radiating a ton of golden light, and he was a giant orb shape back there. And so I was like trying to do true form, like show me more about this being, because remember, our minds always interpret. And so I really wanted to see like what shape is he. And that's the other interpretation I got, was all this golden light and this giant orb type shape with little sparks here and there. So, I just did that as a flicker with the 360 method there. And then I went back to preparing my salad. And that's when I noticed the chives. The extremely long, wildly unhinged, impossibly overgrown chives. These things were 9 feet long minimum, like maybe 12, I don't know. They were stretched out like, tubas or maybe like astral anacondas. Now they weren't actually like alive or anything, but they were just, delicately like snaking across the kitchen, like they'd been growing since the Mesozoic era. And I started laughing so hard at the absurdity of them that it jolted me awake. So that was my bad. And by the way, there were also enormous heads of cabbage and corn strewn about, like it had just been cut off a cob, but it was like really messy, and it looked like I was going to have to gather up the corn to put it in the salad. But really, it was those chives that, had me bust out laughing, and I lost it over the chives. So what does it mean when your spirit guide is way more upset about the delay than you are? Good question. And I'm not 100% sure. My interpretation is that 2/10 probably isn't an exact measurement, but more of a time frame. So I'm reading it as possibly 2 weeks to 2 months of a delay, and that's fine by me. And even if it is a quantum measurement of some kind, energy-wise, like I was saying, I need a little more rest anyway. And cosmically speaking, timing is really important, especially in space. And with wanting something very specific in the astral versus just making more of a general intention. So when something is off, forcing it usually isn't the best plan, at least for myself. It's much better, I've found for me, to rebuild strength and let the connection happen naturally. Now, I don't always do that. Sometimes I go ahead and forge ahead, but I just don't feel like that's the thing to do right now. So in the meantime, I will keep placing the intention to go to Jupiter, and listening to my song and just putting it out there, but more lightly, without pushing it like constantly. And I'll let myself, meditate on other things as well. And, just pop it in there and then recheck in 2 weeks or 3 weeks if I still haven't gone to Jupiter by then. So, the multiverse is huge. I'm sure I'll find plenty of other bizarre astral neighborhoods, cosmic oddities, and bizarre vegetables to keep me occupied. So that's the update. Thanks for tuning in to the Astral Tourist. If you enjoyed this episode of Cosmic Delays, my pensive spirit guide, and bizarre produce, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or send me your own stories about, lucid dreaming and astral weirdness. Until next time, happy astral travels.